I think was this kind of a off topic, but that kind of is the not regret, but just the sad thing about OSSM is you see a lot of people change and like realize that this isn't the experience for them, and seeing the class size diminish as you try to struggle through it, that kind of gets to you. But it makes you overall appreciative of those who actually stay with you along the way, and those who you'll get to meet later on in a different environment.
Hi, I'm Anthony Wen of From C204, and today we're talking to Rahool Barua, OSSM class of 2021. How you doing today, Rahool?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Doing all right. Kind of boring, but nothing much, yeah. So I understand that at OSSM, you guys are really close to the end, You're about 1.5 months away from graduating. How do you feel? You feel excited?
Excited, but also kind of sad. It's ending pretty quickly.
Yeah. I mean, 2 years flies real fast, I felt the same way when I graduated. Good times. Yeah, but speaking of those 2 years, it's good to reflect on those 2 years. So, how did you find out about OSSM? I'm just curious.
So how I found out about OSSM, back in the 8th grade, I ended up going to one of those preview days where, we just visit the campus and hear a guest speaker. And the first time I was ever there, I heard about the concept of not turning in or having to turn in your phones during the school day. And I legitimately did not want to come here just because of that policy by itself.
Yeah, but I understand you heard like the phones saying you can't have phones. What other things did you hear about OSSM? It's like rumors and all.
Well, besides the phones, back in my sophomore year, I was really stressed about coming here because that was the application time. So I ended up, searching around, seeing where I could find places. I stumbled upon the OSSM Discord, and I was able to talk to the alumni, and they were able to give me a general feel for what was going on in the school. It surprised me that, well, it didn't surprise me that the workload was hard, like everyone says it's going to be intense. What surprised me was the amount of people who are actually genuinely chill and the type of community they said was fostered at the school.
Yeah, speaking of that, how do you feel about the study time? I know that it's typically a big culture shock for some people, especially when they first hear about it before they come to OSSM.
Study time wasn't really the biggest of cultural shocks for me. I mean, it was just, a thing we did. What was a big cultural shock was the amount of paperwork we had to do, just like, just on a daily basis, Like at first it was like, I need to wake up at 7 and sign out and leave, and I need to sign in when I come back. What? That just seems absurd. But over time, it's just kind of become a general, like it's just become habit at this point.
Yeah, dude, he just gave you so much nostalgia when you mentioned the sign out form. Oh my gosh, dude, I have thought about that in so long. Dude, I can't think of signing in or signing out anymore now that I'm out. But speaking of along that line, so in your sophomore year when you applied to OSSM and you made it in, I understand that you left a lot of things behind from your old high school, especially because you mentioned there was some big culture shocks going to OSSM. What are some things that you left behind that you wish you could have done at OSSM, but unfortunately, like you get some, you give some, kind of like that.
Yeah. Coming here, I was really nervous because it was such a big change. But I was like, what, let's try it out for a year. But in doing so, I had to really sacrifice like pretty much everything I built up to that point in my high school career. I was, I had to leave my friends and family behind. I had a decent education at Francis Tuttle, and I was wanting to, continue that there. There were a lot of clubs like wrestling and choir that I had to abandon. The opportunity to have a part-time job, that was actually one of the big things that I had to get rid of. But I think during that time, it was such a changing period that I was willing to try out OSSM for a bit, because I really didn't know what I wanted to do at that point. Like I had a general idea, but I just didn't feel like I was doing what I wanted to do at my home high school.
Yeah, And I understand it was like the normal high school life you were talking about that you left behind. And it's like you can't get a part-time job. It's you can't really party and all and staying with all the academics and all. But speaking along that line, what are some, I guess, what was like I'm trying to figure out how to word it. Like the biggest differences you'd say are between your old high school and OSSM? I understand it's like a really vague question, but it's like some of those
I get
major
you.
things, like, oh, that's so different. What's this? What's that?
it
You know?
it's such a different experience. Like it's like comparing high school to college, you know, like this place is basically like a college. You live with your friends, you educate yourself, but it's also not like a college because you're kind of trained to prepare for these kinds of things. You know, you're told to study during these certain hours so that you don't fail and you learn new things. It's really an immersive educational experience. Whereas my home high school, it felt like I had to, you know, not just work on my own, but just work by myself in order to learn something. Here, it's like there's so many people around me that are wanting to follow their passions in STEM or music, or not music, or STEM or like humanities or whatever we're being taught here, you know. It doesn't feel like I have to give in that forward momentum. It feels like the school itself is trying to push me to move forward, you know? And I think that's one of the bigger motivating things about being here.
Yeah. You mentioned a lot about community, about how the OSM community is very different. They have their own interests. How would you feel? How do you feel about the OSSM community as a whole, from the environment to your friends to the teachers? In terms of at least in terms of your old high school now, and how you feel about your current environment?
So when I say OSSM feels more like a college compared to high school, there is one thing I think that generally stays, and that's just like the whole clique environment of being in your own niche. But I genuinely think it's less toxic than it was at my home high school because since we all sort of live together, you know, we all have to learn to get along with each other despite like our different niches. And like even like I don't know, someone put it a really good way. At like the spring fling, I wouldn't be the type to go dancing around or, you know, just like living it up. But because I'm in a school with all these like-minded people and who generally have the same opinion on dances, you know, we're all able to just be ourselves because it's not as judgmental as it is going to a school where you meet these complete strangers day in and day out just to get your education. You know, that whole living aspect adds a layer to it.
I believe it was one of the administrators, at least I think it was when I was a junior, that said you bond through the pain. What do you think about the statement? You know?
That's yes, that's very fitting. It's even the reason why online hit so hard when it came to OSSM was because you kind of lost that sort of feeling of joint suffering that kept you going, you know? Like when a paper was due, it was up to you to figure it out, just like as it was in high school. But when we're on campus, you know, when a paper's due, like everyone's stressing out about that paper and we're all working together to just finish it up as best as we can. You know, we don't want to see each other fail. It's competitive, but not it's not as competitive as I thought. Well, it's a competitive environment, but that doesn't mean you're going to be left behind if you don't catch up. You know, there's everyone is here to help you, and it's just the community. If the community wasn't here, I generally would feel like the OSSM experience would be lost.
So it's so much about this in-person environment, you say, living with your, what do you call it, your friends for 2 years, you're suffering together, you're going through so much. And you mentioned that the OSSM experiment is contingent on working together in person, being together with the people who you will suffer with for 2 years. Would it exactly be OSSM without that in-person part? I know you mentioned something along that, but I want to elaborate on it. How would you feel if it was just 2 years online, kind of similar to what your juniors had to go through before they moved in this semester? Would it
I'd
be worth it?
say, um, I'd say it would be worth it, but not as much because while online kind of does suck because it's online, you know, the way OSSM handled online, it wasn't completely like do it yourself as I saw certain things happen. You know, it's just like the educational material they hand you is enough to boost yourself up to study, but I genuinely think if you don't have enough experience beforehand to use those educational materials properly, you won't thrive or succeed, which is why being in person your first semester as a junior, your whole junior year, is pivotal to being able to succeed in the OSSM educational environment.
What do you think your juniors missed out on not being able to be there in person, other than that, the experience? But like, what are some specific things do you believe?
Um, I mean, honestly, like it's mainly just the regular high school flag, like the dances, the meeting each other up at the beginning, the initializing all together. That kind of felt fragmented whenever we came back. But I think we've been trying our best to give the juniors that experience this semester, even though they're in like what I'd say the mid-tier difficulty of semesters at OSSM. And they're just now coming in with that support group of the OSSM community itself.
Do you know if OSSM plans to continue being in person, or do you know something will suddenly cause it to go back online, like the pipe incident?
The pipe incident, no one wanted to go back online for that, but it was kind of a forced situation in which we were stuck in COVID and all these things were happening. So generally speaking, the student body has been vocal about not being online next semester. So I think it's going to be in person majorly. The way they've been handling in person has been pretty well now. We haven't had any outbreaks recently. And with COVID hopefully dying down, hopefully we can get back to the OSSM experience being normal, where juniors can come in their first year, experience that 6 week getting to know each other, and then eventually just find what they're best at and just succeed.
Yeah. Well, at least what do you think you missed out on? I understand that you had that junior year in person, well, for the most part, and then you had that online experience for your first semester and the latter end of your junior year. So I understand you missed out on some things like prom and all. What major things do you feel like you missed out on in terms of the OSSM experience?
I don't know if it's a major complaint because I missed out on senior year first semester, which is from what I felt the hardest of semesters. So it was nice being online and being able to somewhat like work around the structure of OSSM in order to get everything done. But I really do think I missed a semester of just being with my friends and just doing dumb high school stuff.
Well, hopefully they have a prom also. I understand you guys got a spring fling, which is, I assume, the equivalent to a winter formal, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully you guys do get the senior year prom. It's actually, I wish I had a senior year prom. Hopefully you guys get to go to the roof. Have you heard about that? The roof?
I have not. Is it like at the Chesapeake Tower?
No, it's the roof of OSSM. But typically, before the students graduate, from what I've heard, my seniors told me, that I think after finals, they stay the night from Friday to Saturday, and they just mess around, right? They go to the roof of OSSM. I think it's the roof of the dorm on like the very top, and they have fun. I understand seniors, they took pictures of OSSM from the rooftop, and it was an amazing experience, according to the pictures. It looked really cool, right? So hopefully you guys get that experience of being able to just, to mess around. So when is the prom again? I completely forgot.
Prom is, I think, like the third week of April, if I remember correctly.
Wait,
we get a day off beforehand. It's coming up fast, man. What is it? OSSM has been trying to make up for last semester's missed events by just packing them all week after week. Like we're having international night the week before prom.
Oh, international. I remember international night, dude. Hopefully, I assume it's going to be very different from the traditional international night because of COVID, I assume. Are they still doing the food thing? Because I really loved when they did the international food. People bring in their cultural dishes, you eat them. I got some pretty good kimchi.
Sure. I hope they do, but I think it's just going to be Pausum that's allowed in. I don't know. I can't speak for the school.
Well, I'll let you guys get some semblance of an international night. I understand it's really important for your juniors to get into. That's one of the pivotal also some events. Like that, finals week, prom, and I don't know, Saturday exams. Oh, speaking of Saturday exams, do you guys still receive Saturday exams?
We do. This weekend, there was actually a Saturday exam for most of the prop stats and like the Calc 1 and Calc 2 students.
Oh, the math exam, the classic.
Yeah, the math exams.
Yeah. Wait, did you guys have a West Civ exam? I know that's like the big and scary one.
We skipped the midterm, so we're just gonna have the final.
Mm,
That's one of the
man.
benefits of going back online for those 3 weeks.
Yeah, I understand West Civ and the senior experience of suffering through Western civilization is what makes you from a junior to a senior. It's like, but speaking of that, what do you think are the major experiences of OSSM? Like the major landmarks?
Um, let's see. The first 6 weeks, obviously, because you're getting used to everything. And anytime you have a paper deadline, I think is a good, accurate assessment of you're going to change after this. Uh, Depending on when you start the paper, that's another thing. But on that note, like American literature, I think was a big one. Or well, no, U.S. history comes first. U.S. history was like the first hurdle, and then comes American literature. But if you get screwed over, you might have American literature first semester, and then you're gonna have to jump a big hurdle the first semester. But I think that's the one of the major experiences. Going from your PC3s and Gen Phys and Gen Chems to like mechanics, E&M, Orgo or Biochem, if you take it, that's generally another hurdle. I don't know when that happens, but it's more like a semester-wide thing. And then I think that pretty much sums it up. Your winter break is a very big stretch. You can just divide it up by semester really, because like going from first semester junior year to last semester senior year, you go through a lot through this experience, and you're not going to come out the same you were going in.
So, how do you feel about how much you've grown between each semester? If you're more comfortable talking about that.
Oh yeah, no, most definitely. What is it? I'm gonna get a bit personal, but before I came here, I generally didn't do much for myself. I was just kind of floating around in life. Like I had passions and things I wanted to do, but I just didn't feel like I could do them myself. OSSM has really just like been able to empower me and teach me that yes, I can do things by myself. I don't need someone to hold my hand throughout the way. Going into the dorms and going into this experience where you just have to deal with meeting new people and new conflicts, new just stresses, just this type of environment, it changes you heavily and it makes you more independent. I know, like, what is it? I haven't been able to ride a bike for the past 16 years, but the summer after junior year, I was just like, you know what? Let me try it. And in 2 days, I got it down. And I never would have been able to do something like that if I didn't believe in myself after going through this hellish experience at OSSM.
Speaking of that, do you think you missed out? Like, what are other normal high school experiences? I understand I talked about this question earlier, but what other things do you feel like OSSM, especially COVID OSSM, you missed out on? Like the bicycle. I understand you used to do wrestling as well. I understand you probably can't do wrestling much anymore. What other things do you believe you kind of wish you could have done at OSSM?
I mean, the things I kind of missed was just really the community I left back at my home high school. Like, not the home high school community itself, but like the people at my vocational technical school and stuff like that. One thing I think I would have looked forward to is back at Francis Tuttle, senior year, they're having a project where it's an engineering design course where they have to just build something and patent something. And I think I would have been looking forward to having a capstone project like that. But I also know if they added that here, that would be way stressful, and I would not want that. Otherwise, a lot of coming to OSSM gave me a lot more experiences I never expect I would have had. Like I'd never expect. I don't know how much I can talk about this, but last night we had a casino night. The night before we had a karaoke night. The night before we had a spring fling, and even then, just being on my floor, or the other weekend we were just on our floor watching movies, and then I went downstairs and watched the movie. Like these kinds of things that I used to have to take time and effort to leave the house and do by myself, it's just all integrated, and all these experiences just enrichen my time here, and I wouldn't take it back for anything in the world.
Speaking of those important experiences you've gone through at OSSM, the casino night, spring fling, those bonds, what are your favorite memories? I understand. One of my favorite memories of you was the firefighter incident. Do you remember that?
Wait, did you see that?
I heard about it. I looked outside. It was like, what?
Oh my god.
Why is there firefighters outside the OSSM building?
Wait, can we talk about it, or is that going off?
Let's talk about it.
Okay. Yeah, one of the best experiences, but also one of the worst experiences I've ever had here was coming back from Thanksgiving break, having to do my annotated bibliography for US history, and then just like taking a break at 10 p.m. Wait, setup. So I was taking a break and almost finished up with my annotated bib after study time, just walking around. The seniors, the juniors, they were doing their thing in the commons where they were just acting like monkeys. And I ran into my friend Bogan's room, closed the door. And when I tried to get out, it's an electronic key door. So when I tried to get out, I opened the door and someone hit the handle at this exact same moment. And the handle ended up breaking and locking me in there till 1 a.m. It was...
Oh my god.
It was, and I had something due the next day, so I was just sitting there like, I'm gonna jump out the window if no one comes. I'm going to go out the window. It felt like an escape room and a half, I could hear like voices through the doors, like Bogan was out there like, you okay in there? Need help? And then Mr. Griffith would come by and be like, we're gonna get Dr. Wong. And then Dr. Wong would come in there and be like, we're getting security. And eventually I saw these firemen just congregate near like the second floor, like backyard area and just like grabbing the ladder. And I was like, finally I'm out of here. They just they wire cut open the window, and I had to leave through the fireman's arms out the ladder. And the experience afterwards, it was like 1 a.m. I ran it back into my floor. There was a huge reunion and congratulations. And then
you're alive, let's go. There's confetti everywhere and a big sign.
And then once all the dust settled, we were like, okay, where's Bogan gonna sleep? And so we all just we brought a mattress into our room. Bogan and Caleb slept in our room. I finished up my annotated bib as much as I could. But overall, it was it was one of the most interesting experiences I've had here.
So you mentioned the story with Alex Steimer. How big do you think the relationship of the senior and juniors, how that influences your OSSM experience, your time at OSSM?
It's a ton. If this school was like freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, a lot of that tight-knit community, mentor-mentee aspects kind of just go away, being on both ends of the spectrum, having been a junior and a senior myself. Being a junior, I went in thinking, man, this is such a stressful environment. I'll never understand what's going on. My seniors were able to pick me up to a point where I'm now that senior who's able to look at these Gen Chem and Gen Phys problems and be like, here's how you do it. This is going to get easier for you. Trust me, I'm almost at the end of life. So I think it's nice to see that dichotomy of just being completely helpless to being actually able to help others who were able to help you in that same way before. And not even just academics, just like living here in general. Like, it's stressful being at home, being away from home, away from your family, but if you have the right seniors like I did, and if you have the right juniors like I do now, you don't feel like you're missing much.
Going along that line, I understand community core is still a thing. I assume. Are you community core? Sure.
Or
Oh, I understand community core. One of their main job as the seniors is to help the juniors transition. How do you think that helped you gradually ease into OSSM, or was it just being tossed into the waters helped you transition here?
I'd say it's a little bit of both because I thought, what is it, the week of community core, it was good because I was able to meet my junior class and kind of get a lay of the low. We were given a lot of rules at the beginning, which felt a lot very overwhelming. But in actuality, it wasn't too bad when we actually came in. So it kind of, it over prepared me so that I wouldn't feel stressed out when things came to be true. I think one thing it really did though was it kind of shifted what I expected of the seniors because when I came in with the thought of, oh, these are the juniors and these are the seniors that I'm going to have for this first year. And then when the seniors moved in, it just created a whole different environment that wasn't necessarily good or bad, but it was just something I don't think anyone could have prepared me for. But otherwise, I think it was without it, I would have just been completely out of the waters, having to fend for myself.
Yeah, dude, those what was it 4 days of orientation? Those were the most, at least for myself, it was the most what's going on here experience of my life. So it's like I have to live here. I have to live away from home, and I think they did a pretty. I'd say myself. I think they did a pretty good job of getting me adjusted to OSSM. From the academic stuff, like here's your classes, here's signing up, the procedure, to all the fun activities. And from when I did it, they did like a treasure hunter, something like that. And oh my, the worst experience, they had a big ball, and like whoever would catch the ball would have to do an icebreaker introduction. And it was terrible. It was brutal. It was brutal. It was gruesome because I really, oh man. But yeah, things like that, I think it helped a lot. Did you guys have to do that for your juniors or the community
I
core
don't know.
members?
Oh, we did have orientation, but it was really weird because not everyone came, and that included a couple of Concord people because we were in the middle of like like almost red COVID, so some people just didn't want to come back due to safety reasons, and so they asked a lot of the seniors who weren't Concord come help during that week. I was busy during that week, but from what I heard, it went pretty well. Like, it was just weird having to call Jacob the week before or the day before I moved in, asking, "Hey, do you want me to bring a rug?" And just hearing the juniors scream in the background, I was like, "Wow, this is happening."
At least the juniors were able to get a semblance of that OSSM orientation experience. I understand it's super important for you guys, or at least for them, for you, and for my class, and the previous classes went through OSSM because it is that brutal experience of, it's a new environment. You're scared. It's like taking a fish out of the water and they're just flopping around and they don't know what's going on. They're in an unfamiliar environment.
And people come in here leaving their friends, family, all that stuff, and it's like, "Oh, now you have more schoolwork."
But yeah, honestly, speaking of schoolwork, this topic just came to mind. How do you feel about the OSSM schoolwork as you transition? Do you think you end up getting more work, harder work, or was it just kind of just overall just brutal?
Um, I need to preface this heavily. OSSM is the most brutal of academic environments you could ever be in besides med school. Like, I talked to my family about it too. That first junior year, I just kept telling my dad, "Oh my God, what is this what it's gonna be like in the future?" And they're like, "No, it's just a big change because you're really young." But Keith, Keith,
Which Keith? I know many Keiths.
Keith, the maintenance guy.
Oh, Keith the maintenance guy. I love Keith the maintenance
Yeah,
guy.
Keith the maintenance guy. He gave one of the best pieces of advice. Like when we were walking back to the dorms, he's like, "Y'all are working hard now, so that way earlier in life or later in life, you don't have to work as hard. I work hard now to have a wonderful family, but the fact that you're doing it now will just make things easier in the end." And I think going into this semester, I find that ideology to be somewhat true You know, you're overwhelmed, you're stressed, you're honestly like, you're at your limits at the beginning in the first junior year. But you do learn to find your ups and your downs, and you do know how to work around it. So that way, when you get on to do, you know, bigger things with your life, you won't be as overwhelmed. You'll have that experience beforehand, especially if you're planning to go into college. You know, that first and second year isn't gonna just come out of nowhere. You're not gonna be like, what is this? Why am I living together with these people? You'll just pick it up immediately and just do what you will have a vision of what you want to do. That's the thing.
Yeah, I completely understand what you're talking about. I mean, now you're like suffering now, but now I mean you're close. Especially you're at the end of the tunnel. Like, are you excited to graduate from OSSM, or are you kind of like you're gonna miss like a what's the word? Stockholm syndrome. You know, I was thinking
Stockholm syndrome. Yeah.
about.
I mean, I'm getting rose-tinted glasses because we're almost at the last semester and a half. I'm looking forward to college, sure, but I'm really gonna miss all these people, you know. And that's not just including the students. I'm gonna miss like Miss Hyatt, Dr. McCargish, like, you know, all, like the faculty and the staff. Like living here for so long, they just grow on you. You know, now you're leaving it to be in a whole new environment again, where you have to find your own people and create your own momentum. You know, it's not a bad thing. It's just like there's something about the overwhelming and stressful environment at OSSM that like creates an environment where you all push through it together. And I think that's something I'm gonna miss for a bit.
I mean, that's why a lot of people like to visit OSSM when they graduate because they miss the environment, they miss the people. Even if they can't see their friends, and because you know they're not going to be visiting at the same time. It's like it's so familiar the brick-laden walls that they walked through for 2 years while trudging along to their I don't know, their neuro exam. So waking up at 7 a.m. to study for your 8 a.m. Saturday test. It's the little things like that make OSSM so beautiful. I mean, I would love to visit. But I mean, COVID really made it hard. I had to do like what 20 forms effectively. I would, you know,
Yeah.
I could probably get Luke in August and we'd all be down there visiting you guys. But that's gonna be pretty tough, especially because you guys are last stretch. You guys are struggling. We don't, you know, we don't want to make you guys suffer, or at least would laugh. We would definitely laugh at you. We're like, I remember when I was there, grade or age or whatever you want to say. You know, what'd you do? But was also some. Now that you're almost done, would you do anything differently? Would you, over your time here, anything you're like, oh, I wish I took this opportunity because I have some of those myself. I'd love to complain about for hours on end.
I think at the beginning of the year, like junior year, I kind of feel bummed out that I felt so fish out of water for such a long time. Like, I kind of feel bummed out that I didn't take the opportunities to express myself publicly or just like do things I wanted to do because I always made the excuse of I have to do work or I have to, what is it? I don't trust these people. Like, I didn't say, I don't say I think I regret not going all in at the beginning, but I just kind of feel bad for not loosening up later on, you know. But I guess it's hard to do whenever, you know, you're in that stressful environment of you need to do your best, like no one ever was.
So that kind of ties into the next question. Do you regret anything? Do you regret? I don't mean I know you mentioned you liked Darnelson, but do you regret leaving your old school? Do you regret not doing things? Like at least that's kind of reiterating it. But do you have any regrets from your time at Ulster?
I think when we were online, I had some heavy regrets about not going back on my home school since they were actually able to go in person, and I was kind of stuck in an environment where I had to keep myself safe from COVID. But that's not on the school. That's just on how bad the situation was back then. I think overall, I don't really regret much. I was able to go home on the weekends, come here, do my thing here, you know. I do regret not spending as much time with the people in my junior class, or like staying more weekends and going on more van trips. Actually, no, you know what? I miss not going on as many van trips. Like now that they've been canceled due to COVID, like I only had a few, only a few experiences to go off of.
Uh, I miss those van trips. I remember when I would just go on them and just buy noodles. You remember? Do you remember that? The yakisoba business.
Oh, I remember the yakisoba.
Dude, that was. Uh, yeah. I regret not talking to more people, not staying in contact with more OSSM people, because I only maintain contact with like barely less than like 15 OSSM people. They're all out doing their own thing in the world, from I don't know, from Yale to Stanford and all that jazz. So I wish I still maintained contact with them. Maybe we'll do a class meetup. Yeah. But I know you're especially close to your classmates. Yeah. Are you gonna miss them? Are you gonna try to maintain contacts?
I'm gonna miss them a lot. I really want to maintain contact, but it's like I don't know. It's like you can talk and do all that stuff, but you really can't emulate the same experience unless you're in person and you start reminiscing.
Mm.
It's just college is gonna be a different experience, and I think it's gonna somewhat fill in the gaps that leaving OSSM will. But I think once it's all gone, you'll remember your friends, and you might meet up with a few more. And I personally want to keep in contact with the people I was at OSSM too. But it was the same experience in leaving my home high school. You know, there were only so many people I could keep in contact before eventually, you know, the rest were just like the people you didn't expect you'd miss the most just leave. And I think this is kind of a off topic, but that kind of is the not regret, but just the sad thing about OSSM is you see a lot of people change and, you know, like realize that this isn't the experience for them. And seeing the class size diminish as you try to struggle through it, that kind of gets to you. But it makes you overall appreciative of those who actually stay with you along the way, and those who you'll get to meet later on in a different environment. You know, I have a friend of mine who dropped because COVID made their online school just was not well for his mental health. But I know I'm going to look forward to it because he's going to OE as well, and I might be able to see him there too.
Well, thank you for thank you for meeting with me today, Rahool. Thanks for taking some time out of your day to talk about OSSM, all the good times, all the bad times. But yeah, well, this is From C204 signing off. Man, I love saying that. See ya.
Hey, take care.